A once glorious hive world lies in ruins, its resources plundered for millennia by man, beast, and alien. Clashes are commonplace, and this transmission depicts one such skirmish on Ikar 4. Wily Deathskulls seek treasured resources, while Hive Fleet Kraken's simple aim is to devour. The Orks held the Tyranids at bay once before. Can they now deliver the fatal blow?
Hi there, Guy from Midwinter Minis here with my friend Ant for a fun, friendly rematch between Tyranids and Orks. In the previous game, my Deathskulls overpowered Hive Fleet Kraken and took home a victory, but can they do it again against a more elite force? Now for this rematch, I am bringing exactly the same army as I was victorious with in the last match, so just to recap, 500 points exactly of Deathskulls Orks. A simple patrol detachment. My HQ is a Weirdboy who knows Krunch, as well as Smite, obviously. I have a squad of 21 Ork boys. Now this includes the boss knob, who has a Kustom Shoota and a power claw, and also one of the boys has a Big Shoota. The rest of them are just armed with sluggers and choppers. In my elite slot, I have a squad of 10 Burna boys. In my heavy support, I have a Deff Dread, who is armed with 3 Dread Claws and 1 Skorcha. And finally, I have a dedicated transport, which is a Trukk. Nice and simple, with just a Big Shoota. I've chosen the Weirdboy to be my Warlord, and I've given him the trait Ardor's Nails, which gives him +1 to his toughness, making him toughness 5. All of these orcs are Deathskulls, which means they have a 6+ invulnerable save, and also I get to reroll a single hit roll, a single wound roll, and a single damage roll for each unit each time it fights or shoots, which is pretty handy.
So here I am back with my Tyranid force. I've changed the list slightly just to give me a little bit more power when it comes to the shooting phase. Last time I really wasn't able to do much, but this time I've brought along 3 Hive Guard in my elite slot. So they're armed with the Impaler Cannon, which should give me some tasty shooting. I've also got a Broodlord. The Broodlord is going to be my Warlord, so he has a bio artifact of Chameleonic Mutation, which means that any ranged shots will be -1 to hit him. And for his Warlord trait, I've chosen Synaptic Lynchpin, which gives him an extra 6 inches to his synapse range. So it means he can get a little bit further away from my Hive Guard and the Ripper Swarms without them defaulting to instinctive behavior, which should be quite handy. He's got Smite, and I've also given him Onslought. And then I've got a squad of 18 Genestealers with Scything Talons and Rending Claws. 18, why not 20? Well, it's just because of points really. Can't forget that Jeff is actually nestled in there. Jeff is back. He's got some war stripes from last time, from his valiant effort. I've also then got a squad of Rippers. So just 3 bases of Rippers, and that brings me up to 499 points. And that gives me 3 command points because I'm taking a patrol detachment. Now I've chosen Hive Fleet Kraken, so that means I can advance using 3 dice and actually pick the highest, which should be quite nice for getting my Genestealers and Broodlord way up the board and hopefully get them in range of some of these objectives.
For this game, we'll be playing Warhammer 40,000 8th edition. We'll be playing a matched play game, which means our points value are pretty much equal and limited to 500 points. And we are playing a custom scenario where basically there are 3 objective markers in the center and opposite corners of our deployment zones. At the end of each battle round, if any of them are held, the army that holds them receives 1 victory point. Nice and simple. And this will be the only way to score victory points in this game. Linebreaker, Slay the Warlord, and First Blood will not be up for grabs. For deployment, we each chose opposite corners and deployed 18 inches away from the very tip of the corner. Because I sneakily embarked my Weirdboy and the Burna boys into my Trukk, I only had 3 units to place, so I finished deploying first, which means I get +1 to my roll. 5 versus 3, I didn't even need the bonus, so I get to go first. Orks, turn 1.
Guy's choosing to advance his boys up onto Objective 3. The Deff Dread, he's going to try and move into the centre on Objective 2. And the Truck's going to wind its way round onto Objective 1. So Guy's really trying to get as many of his units onto those objectives to score some early points in the game. Now unfortunately, because Guy's put his Weirdboy in the Trukk for safety, it also means he can't actually fire any psychic powers out of it. So nothing in the psychic phase this turn for the Orks. Now on to the shooting phase. guy hasn't really got a lot that's within range. The Burners are not within range, and the Boyz aren't within range or anything. Neither's the Death Dread. But the Trukk has got a Big Shoota, and there's also a Big Shoota in the squad of Boyz. So with a 36-inch range, Guy's going to try and take some shots at the Genestealers to try and knock some of them off. Now, because Guy advanced both the Trukk and the Boyz, normally they wouldn't be able to shoot, but because these are assault weapons, they can shoot, but they'll just be at -1, which means that Guy's going to be hitting on 6s this time. And 1 hits on a 6. Now, Guy does get to re-roll one of those hits, and unfortunately that still fails, but he also gets an extra hit for Daka Daka Daka. That fails as well, so it's still just the 1 hit going in on the Genestealers. Guy's going to be needing a wound on a 3 or more. Hey, Guy rolls a 6, that's 1 wound going through. So Genestealers have a chance to save it, 5 up. Unfortunately that's 1 dead Genestealer at the moment, so it's okay. That's the end of the Orc shooting phase, and there's nothing within charge distance, so there's no charge or fights. There's no morale to be taken, so that's the end of Orc turn 1.
In Tyranid's turn 1, the Hive Guard are going to stay put because obviously if they move, their heavy weapons will suffer a penalty. The Ripper Swarms are going to move as fast as they can towards Objective 2 in the middle, and Ant is choosing to move the Broodlord and that swarm of Genestealers towards the Trukk that's holding Objective 1. Rolling to advance for the Genestealers, Ant scores a 6, which means with a base range of 8, they'll be going 14 inches. That is only 7 inches away from my Trukk. Oh, I can smell a charge coming on. In a bit of a rogue move, Ant is choosing to use the stratagem Metabolic Overdrive, and not for the obvious Genestealers, but actually for the Ripper Swarms to get them on Objective 2 at the end of turn 1. Ant rolls a 5 in the advance, meaning the Rippers are on top of Objective 2. Nicely played. And that's the movement phase over and done with. Now onto the psychic phase. Ant is choosing to smite the Trukk as it's easily within range. So with a 6, that psychic power goes off, and unfortunately I can't try to deny the witch because my Psyker is inside a transport. And with D3 mortal wounds, that means 2 mortal wounds are going straight through to the Trukk. No saves allowed. Psychic phase over, onto the shooting phase, and the Hive Guard are going to try and soften up that Trukk even more, ready for the impending charge. The Impaler cannons that the Hive Guard are armed with means they don't even need a line of sight. Now that is mean. Hitting on 3s, and only 1 misses. Now strength 8 against toughness 6 means he'll be wounding on 3s, and 3 of those wounds go through. Now the Trukk only has a 4+ save and it's AP -2, so I'm down to a 6 up. Now 2 of those wounds go through, unfortunately. Now let's see how much damage they cause. D3 each, 4 in total, taking me down to 4 wounds remaining on the Trukk. Oh, looking so good. Moving on to the charge phase, the Genestealers just need a roll of 7 to get in combat with the Trukk. First though, some Overwatch on those Genestealers. Heartbreakingly, even though I have Burna boys in there, they cannot shoot out during Overwatch, even though the vehicle's open topped. They can only do that in the shooting phase. 3 shots from the Big Shoota coming in. No hits, even with my Deathskulls reroll. Nothing connected from the Overwatch, and now Ant rolls an 8. Let the carnage commence. And now let's see if the Broodlord makes it in on an 11. Nope, not this time. That Broodlord is staying put. After the little shuffling around 3-inch pile in, Ant has 11 Genestealers in range of the Trukk, and they have 4 attacks each, which means Ant's going to be rolling 44 dice. So first up, he's going to roll 22 Rending Claws, and they'll be hitting on 2s because of the proximity of the Broodlord. So that is 20 hits going through, wounding on 5s. But any 6s Ant rolls will be resolved at AP -4. Ant just gets 1 6, but 5 5s. I failed that 6 up, and I failed 3 of the 5 ups, which means the Trukk gets reduced to 0 wounds. But hopefully it'll explode on a 6+ and cause some wounds to those Genestealers. Oh! So the Trukk exploding causes D3 mortal wounds to all units within 6 inches. Here we go for the Genestealers, and a 5 means 3 mortal wounds for the Genestealers, so 3 of them just die. Now because my embarked Orc units aren't technically on the battlefield yet, the explosion doesn't affect them, but they still have to force disembark, which means I roll a dice for every model that's currently embarked, and on a 1, that model is slain. Not a 1 in sight. Everybody lived! Woo! Now, try as I might, I just simply couldn't get all of the boys far enough away from those Genestealers with the tiny 3-inch disembark move you're allowed. So those Genestealers are going to get to consolidate in 3 inches towards the Burna boys, locking them in combat, so I won't be able to overwatch. This is a nightmare. On the plus side, the Burna boys are now engaged, and it's the fight phase, so I get to pile in and fight back. 10 Burna boys means 20 attacks going through, hitting on 3s. 13 of those hits make their mark. Now let's see if I can wound the Genestealers on 4s. And after all my Deathskulls rerolls, I get 6 wounds going through. Now let's see if Ant can save them on a 5+. Ant fails on 4 of those rolls, which means 4 Genestealers bite the dust. So that is the end of turn 1. Now it's time to tally up the points. Objective 1 is definitely contested with that big brawl going on over there. Objective 2 though is definitely held by those Ripper Swarms, so that's 1 victory point to Ant, 0 for me. Before we jump into turn 2, a quick shout out to our awesome new patrons, Alan Blunder, Benjamin Dixon, OMG It's Bees, Stephen Copley, Jim Pyre, Dildo Baggins, Aidan Warlow, Cirrus, God King of the Pantry, Jeff Barber, Jack Ackford, Pierre Lombard and Alan Greenwood. You can join too for just $2 a month, chat with us on Discord and help support the channel. Now back to the action.
So Orcs movement on turn 2. Guy's going to choose to move the Weirdboy back slightly so he can just be out of Genestealer range while still being within range to do some psychic shenanigans in the next phase. Guy's also going to be moving his Burna boys out of combat. That means that the Burna boys are going to be freed up, which means that any Genestealers charging them next turn are going to actually face that Overwatch. Not very good for the Genestealers. Guy's going to move his Death Dread up to try and take objective 2 off of those Rippers. Now, because his base is so big, we know that he's actually standing on that metal grating, but Guy's just going to rest him to the side for now, using the wobbly model syndrome rule. Guy's going to try and advance his boys to get a little bit closer onto objective 3 to try and take that to score some well-earned points. So onto the Orcs Psychic phase, and Guy's going to be casting the Krunch on those Genestealers. Goes off on a warp charge value of 8, but because he's Orky and because he's a Weirdboy, he gets something called Wah energy. For every 10 friendly models that he's got within 10 inches of him, he gets an extra +1, which means that this actually is going to be going off on a 7 rather than an 8. So luckily the Broodlord is just about 24 inches away, which means he can try and deny this psychic power. I need to beat a 9 in order to actually deny that psychic power. Unfortunately a 6, which means that psychic power does go off, and this is going to be painful. Guy's going to roll a dice for every model in that unit, and on a 6 they will die. So that's not as bad as it could have been, but that's 3 dead Genestealers though. Guy rolls again on 2d6 to see if he can do it again on a score of 10 or more, and luckily for the Genestealers, it doesn't go off again, because that would have been catastrophic for them. So that's just 3 dead Genestealers in the Psychic phase. Now within the shooting phase, and Guy's going to choose to shoot his Death Dread Skorcha. D6 shots on the Skorcha. This is going to be some toasted Rippers. The Skorcha's automatically hit, so there's no worries about Orc shooting there. And Guy's going to need 3s in order to wound. And Guy uses his Death Skull reroll to score another successful wound, making 5 in total. So with 3 wounds per base of Rippers and a 6+ save, means there's no saving going on right now because the Scorch is a -1. That means that 1 base is dead and another base is on 1 wound. Ouch. Guy's going to actually aim his Big Shoota and Kustom Shoota from that squad of boys squarely at the Rippers to try and take them out so that his Death Dread can move up and take that objective. Because Guy advanced his boys, he's going to need a 6 in order to hit, and no hits unfortunately, but Guy rerolls 1 for Deathskulls and it's still a fail. The Rippers live on! So Guy's really got his eyes set on objective 2 and wants to wipe those Rippers off of there, so he's going to charge the Death Dread into those Rippers. So there's no Overwatch because there's no shooting weapons on those Rippers. The Death Dread gets 2 attacks as base score, but then he gets another 3 for each of the Dreadclaws that he's got on him, making a total of 5. And unfortunately only scores 3 hits, but Guy gets his little Death Skull reroll and it still fails, so there is still 3 hits coming through. 2s to wound, and they all wound. And because of the AP value on this one, it's -3, which means there's no save that the Rippers are going to be taking. So with only 4 wounds left on these models and 3 damage each on those wounds, they are toast. The Rippers are gone, they have been chopped up and smushed into tiny little pieces, just as they should when coming up against the Death Dread. And that is the end of Orks turn 2. There's no morale to take on this one. The Genestealers are still within that Synapse range. Tyranids turn 2.
Now, because my Orks are just slightly too far away from Objective 1 to hold it, Ant doesn't really feel the need to grab it right now. Instead, he's looking at that Death Dread holding Objective 2, and he's thinking that every single thing he's got is going to be going against it. After all, he doesn't really want to face all those Burna boys in Overwatch. So he's planning to move his Genestealers and Broodlord towards the Death Dread by advancing, but he's going to keep those Hive Guard behind that building because they don't have to have line of sight to whatever they shoot. The only thing that Ant can really do in the Psychic phase which would be effective is to smite that Death Dread. Warp charge of 5. Now let's see if I can deny it. Whew, and with a roll of an 8, that smite does not happen. My Weirdboy denied it. Onto the shooting phase now, and as we said before, the Hive Guard will be targeting the Death Dread. So that's 6 shots coming in, hitting on 3s. Only half of them go through, but they are strength 8 against my toughness of 7, so they'll be wounding on 3s. And all of them wound. Now these Impaler cannons have an AP of -2, which takes my save to a 5+. Not looking so good. And these cause D3 wounds each. Ant is going to choose to use a command point to reroll that 1, because then that would totally destroy the Death Dread and he wouldn't even have to take on its Skorcha in Overwatch. Let's see if he does it. It's another 1! Hey! 1 wound remaining on that Death Dread, and Ant just has 1 command point left. Now, because it'd be practically impossible for me to kill the Broodlord just with my Overwatch, Ant's going to charge first with the Broodlord and then with the Genestealers. Here comes my Overwatch at the Broodlord. Oh yes! A 6! That means it gets 6 automatic hits. Strength 5 against toughness 5, wounding on 4s. Every single one wounds. This is a dream come true. That is some pretty spectacular saving throws. Only 2 of them failed, so 2 wounds go through to the Broodlord, taking him down to 4 wounds. Now that Broodlord is only 2 inches away, so it's automatically in, and just hops him on top of those barrels to get some dramatic posing. It's definitely wobbly model syndrome though, he is definitely in base-to-base contact. Now we roll to see if the Genestealers can get in, and of course they will be able to. They roll an 8, so they get in as close as they can and round the other side of the Death Dread. They definitely want to get as far away as they can from those Burna boys. Ant is choosing to attack with the Broodlord first, so that is 6 attacks coming in, hitting on 2s. Now the weapons he's using are monstrous rending claws, and they do some serious damage. Any 6s means this Death Dread is basically gone, but generally he's wounding on 5s. But he also gets to reroll all failed wounds. Oh dear. So just 1 goes through even after all those rerolls. Now let's see if I can save it on a 6+. As tempting as it is to use a command point for that, I think I've got to let this Death Dread go. But does he explode on a 6? Nah, not this time. See you later, Death Dread. Man, there's some serious hangers on here. Now the Broodlord is marginally closer to that squad of regular boys than to the Burna boys, so Ant's going to choose to consolidate the 3 inches towards the boys. That marks the end of Tyranid's turn 2, and also marks the end of round 2. Now, time to tally up the points. Annoyingly, those Burna boys are just over 3 inches away from objective marker 1, so they don't score it, but the Genestealers are definitely on objective 2. So Ant is up to 2 victory points to my 0. It's looking like tabling Ant is the only option I've got left.
Okay, on to Orks turn 3 and into the movement phase. Now, there's been a little bit of measuring that's going on, and after a little bit of quick decisioning, Guy's deciding to move the Weirdboy close to objective 1, so he's going to advance him to try and take that objective, and only a 2. So Guy's going to use a command point to re-roll that and change this from a 2 to a 5. Much more respectable and gets him a little bit closer to objective 1. So now Guy advances the Burna boys, and unfortunately only a 2 this time. So that's 7 inches, they're going to be moving up closer to those Genestealers. And now the boys, they've really got that objective in their sights, so they're going to be advancing an extra 6 inches, so that's a whopping 11 inches on that move. So now onto the Ork's Psychic phase, and he's going to be using to Krunch again on the Genestealers. So it goes off on a warp charge of 8. Unfortunately this time, no luck. Phew. Okay, so to kick off the shooting phase this turn, those Burna boys really want to take some revenge on those Genestealers for killing their Trukk earlier. So they're going to be shooting everything into the Genestealers. This is going to be painful. Guy gets a reroll 1 for Deathskulls, making a total of 10 wounds going through on the Genestealers. Oh god, that's not a lot of 5s there to save these Genestealers. So that's 7 wounds. That would be them dead. I'm going to use my very last command point to try and save Jeff on that objective. Let's see if Jeff can do it. Unfortunately not. No, Jeff. Why? Why, Jeff? Why? That's one dead Genestealer unit. So next in the shooting phase, the Big Shoota and the Kustom Shoota in that unit of boys is going to be shooting because they're assault weaponry. Hit on 6s because of the -1 for advancing. Guy gets a reroll 1 for Deathskulls. And unfortunately, no hits go through. That Broodlord is safe. So now onto the charge phase, and unfortunately, because Guy advanced his Burners and his Ork boys, they can't charge. So with no one in base-to-base contact within an inch, that means there's no fights going on either. So quite an empty fight phase, something the Orks probably don't like.
So looking forward into the next turn, Ant is thinking it's going to be incredibly tight points-wise. There's a very good chance this is going to be a draw, but also a couple of bad rolls here and there, and it could be a sneaky win for either of us. So Ant is deciding to move his Broodlord onto objective 2, but closer to the Burna boys for a potential smite, and then he's going to keep his Hive Guard where they currently are, nice and hidden away, and take some pot shots at those Burna boys. Moving on to the Psychic phase, and Ant is going to target the closest unit with Smite, and that will happen on a warp charge of 5. Now because he has Shadow in the warp, I'm going to need an 11 to try and deny this. Oh, so close! Never mind. D3 mortal wounds coming up! Whew, and just 1 this time, so one Burna boy has his head exploded. Onto the shooting phase, and those poor old Burna boys are going to get targeted once again, this time by the Hive Guard and their Impaler cannons. Hitting on 3s. 4 of those go through, strength 8 against toughness 4, they're going to be wounding on 2s. Ouch, all of them wound. Whew, lucky old Deathskulls invulnerable saves, 2 are saved, still means 2 are dead though. And Ant tactically chooses not to charge those Burna boys so he can stay on objective 2. The Orks are now controlling objective 1 and objective 3, taking my score from 0 to 2, and Ant is controlling objective 2 with his Broodlord in the center, taking his total to 3. So Ant is still in the lead, but can he hold on? Let's quickly take care of the morale phase. Now, the Burna boys lost 3 models, and they have mob rule, which means they use the squad size number for their leadership, so that's leadership 7. I might lose a couple more boys here. Nightmare situation. That's another 2 boys gone.
So on to turn 4 for the Orks. This is the last turn, so this is going to be make or break. Guy's going to be leaving the Weirdboy exactly where he is, holding objective 1. He's going to be stringing his boys out on objective 3, so they're still taking the objective, but to try and get some of them within shooting range of that Broodlord. That Broodlord really needs to go down, because if that Broodlord dies, I think it's going to be an Ork win. The Burna boys are going to move up towards objective 2 and the Broodlord, and I think they're going to be unleashing Flaming Fury. So onto the Psychic phase. So he's going to smite the Broodlord, going off on a warp charge value of 6 because of Shadow in the warp. Ooh, mama, it's 11. Perilally close to perils, and I'm not even going to try and deny that with my Psyker, because if I do, I'll perils anyway, so might as well go through, and hopefully it's a low D6 value because it's a super smite. Oh! Ouch, that is 4 mortal wounds going through to the Broodlord. That Broodlord is toast, and I think that was decisive. I think the Orks have now got this one. And so with that, I don't think I'm really going to be able to score any more objectives. And that means I think the Orks have definitely got this one. So I'm going to concede that one. Even if I was to bring my Hive Guard out and charge them up, I could contest objective number 2, maybe. I don't think the shooting would be effective because they'd be on -1 to hit because the Hive Guard would have moved. Therefore, they're going to be at a much reduced effectiveness against those burners. I could try and get closer to objective 1 and shoot the Weirdboy off of that one, but but then Guy's still going to score 2 more for objective 2 and 3, so there's not really much else that I'm going to be able to do to bring this one back, so that's it. It's another Ork win on the rematch, but this one was a much closer game. It went to, it went fro, but in the end, it went to the Orks.
So even though those Hiveguard might have been able to shoot off one of my units off one of those objectives, realistically they can't take any. So that means I would be ahead on points, and Ant concedes the game. Very well played, very enjoyable.
Thanks so much for watching and making it right to the end of the video here. We'll catch you again next time. Goodbye!
Bye for now.
While rending claws ripped apart Ork machinery and impaler cannons wrought devastation, High Fleet Kraken were driven back by the Greenskins. Fueled by war energy, the Deathskulls Psyker crushed the Genestealers into the ground and stole the very essence of life from their Broodlord. To see more from this galaxy aflame, subscribe to Midwinter Minis. The Tyranids retreat for now, but they may yet rise again. For in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war.